much. I promise I won't talk long. Did anyone say May the 4th be with you today yet? Anybody? Okay. Did anyone get hacked on like Disney Plus? You're like, oh, I'm gonna go watch Bluey, and then next thing you know, it's like every single Disney Star Wars movie pops up. It's one of those days. It's one of those days. I have to flex my tie. I don't wear this very often because sometimes it was supposed to weekend, but I got my Darth Vader tie. I think this might be a foreshadowing thing for later on this concert, but I'm not going to give anything away. So this group up here on stage is the Rowan Atlantic Youth Brass Band. This is its 11th season, question mark, maybe 12th. Depends on if you count COVID or not. This group is a fantastic group of students who are some of the top brass players in South Jersey, playing instruments. Not all of them are ones that they're used to playing. So just a quick tour, miniature tour. If you have a cornet, can you hold it up? Not you, Adrian. But if you have a cornet, can you hold it up? So these are not trumpets. These are more cylindrical, excuse me. Is that right? Did I say that right? Like funnel, whatever? Okay. I'm a music person, not an English person. And these are not trumpets. So the beautiful sound that you're getting out of these instruments is because of their conical. I got there. Happy Sunday. It's because of their conical shape. They're not cylindrical. And they have a really beautiful sound. Up at the very top, if Adrian will hold up his horn, this is a soprano cornet. So typically the person you hate the most, you give them that instrument. It's an absolute pain in the butt to play. For those of you who are orchestral people here, and you're like, I'm not really quite following, it's the equivalent of the oboe. Yeah, so when you're playing it, you blow this way, but the horn blows back at you and you get a massive headache. And Adrian does a fantastic job at it. We don't have French horns in this group. Yay. We do have, they might not be so happy. Tenor horns, can you hold up your tenor horns? So these are tenor horns. They're not alto horns. There will be a quiz later. These tenor horns replace the French horn in a brass band. And again, it's a conical shape that we're looking for. We move over to our euphobias and our baritones. So euphoniums, can you hold up your horns? They're big and lovely. However, Willie's gonna hold up his horn. He has an actual British baritone hidden in the mix. And these guys are conical. See a theme here. We'll hold up the flugelhorn. This seems like something from Dr. Seuss, but it's not from Dr. Seuss. Max might be from Dr. Seuss, we don't know. But it is a flugelhorn. We love the sound because it is conical. See a theme here. Tubas, can you hold up your tubas? All right, put them back down. Put them back up again. And one, go ahead down. That's two, okay. Don't forget arm day. We love our tubas. We actually have B-flat tubas back there, and we also have an E-flat tuba. They're pitched differently. And we love them because they're conical. And I think I got everybody. So we move on to the next two. Oh, just kidding. Trombones, hold up your trombones. They're cylindrical. They're like garden hoses. The nice thing about this group, though, is when we bring all these students into play, the Atlantic Brass Band and Rowan University were donated a lot of these instruments to allow these students to really get the full effect of what a British brass band really is. That piece was written by Stephen Ponsford. The first piece is a brass band composer, brass band player. We are going to move on to a more poppy song, which is Wicked, which is not necessarily a brass band piece. However, with brass band instruments, you're going to really hear how beautiful they can turn this piece into. So our next piece will be selections from Wicked. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is another spot where I talk because then their faces rest a little bit, and then they thank me for that later on, and it doesn't really help anyway because they're all going to be dead in the next tune. Which brings me to my next point about difficulty of music. Now, in public school, and this is not a knock towards public school, I'm a public school teacher. I'm one of the band directors in Millville High School. Go Bolts. We give the tubas what we would call whole notes all the time. And then what we do is we give our euphoniums, by the way, what is a euphonium? If I didn't show it to you, would you know? Let's be real, let's be real. And I play it, so it's like really sad. Anyway, they give euphoniums who the composers go, I don't know what that is. So you just highlight the tuba part, copy, paste, move it up the octave. Yeah, we have a euphonium part. And then we're gonna go, if I was playing piano, right? If I was playing 3 notes on a piano, I'm just gonna give those to the trombone, we're good, right? And then the trumpets get the cool ba 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 ba, and then the horns go like this. Right? So all of these instruments tend to get like neglected as much as you think in a public school setting, just because of how difficult it is to get a kid to play a brass instrument. Right? With a woodwind instrument, we can push a button and then that specific note comes out. Now there's a million buttons. I used to play clarinet in my life, I know, it's not easy. But as far as brass is considered, sometimes there's certain areas where those specific students don't get the exposure to fast notes. I feel that's wrong, and I feel that I vomit fast notes on these children 24/7 in a brass band setting, just so that they definitely get that level of education. Now in this next piece, it's a piece by Paul Eva Cooper called Wall of Sound. I said that right? Yeah. I say the title wrong every rehearsal. So Wall of Sound is written by Paul Eva Cooper. Paul Eva Cooper is a world-class professional percussionist. He also writes for TV and film and different commercials and things like that. Now as a percussionist, right, percussionists don't even, you know? So they're like, I don't know, let me just write, like I know a really cool snare drum lick, and then they just write it for the brass players, assuming that they can play it. And in this group, they will, which is a fantastic thing. In our 11 seasons of doing the youth brass band, which it started with, I think we had like 7 kids on here, and the rest of it was filled up with Atlantic Brass Band. We now have a full student, sized youth brass band, which is fantastic. But we've never played anything at this difficulty before. That opener we did is something the actual Atlantic Brass Band does for their summer gigs. And these other 2 pieces are no joke either. So this next piece is really exciting. We'll feature a few soloists in here. I believe we'll have a lot of our front row cornet. Flugel, you're gonna hear them. There's a whole bunch of solos through here, but you're gonna hear a very percussive version of this piece, Wall of Sound. And before we finish it, I do want to give a quick thank you to Rowan University, to Rowan CMS, Community Music School, for all they do to help support us and push us and have us grow in our programs, as well as our lovely stagehand Dina, who runs and makes sure the lights turn on, the microphone works. She could cut me off right now, but she's not. Ooh, that's nice. They're really, really great, and we thank Rowan for everything they do to make sure this group runs. Also in the group, if you can raise your hand if you're filling in or helping out, if you're not a public school kid, right? So we have some Atlantic Brass Band members and Rowan student Frankie, who's been helping us out as our student Rowan Alajon type of thing. And then our assistant director, Mr. Greg Kuhn, here as well. So this would not happen without all the support of all these people, and I want to make sure we really thank them for the effort and the time they put into our program. All right, we're all ready. Let's do Paul Eva Cooper's Wall of Sound.
Bye.